Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another beautiful morning of discussion. We were talking about time in our last video, and I would like to pick it up from there. Just the morning view has been too generous, too kind. So, in our last video about time, we clarified that there is movement and there is a measurement of movement. We can observe the movement in two ways. One is with an objective to get something out of it. And in that objective, our whole intention is to create conclusions about the movement, to create data about the movement. And on basis of that data, on basis of that measurement, we try to predict how the movement will behave in future, or how we can use it for our own profit. This is what all scientific work is all about. This is all the field of modeling, actually, where the attempt is to create a model which will predict the future. So very clearly we can see that there are two ways in which we can perceive the movement. We can perceive the movement as just as movement without measuring it, just looking at the dancing of that tree in front of me without thinking where will the next leaf go, or what direction is this. All these are measurements. So I can measure, or I can observe the tree without all that, or I can observe the tree with all that. And these two aspects are very crucial because these are the central feeling creator of how the reality will feel like to you. If you have the intention of measuring the movement, then that measurement will create knowledge in real time. Okay. The moment you have the intention of measuring the movement, you will feel all this knowledge that, okay, this thing was here, now it has moved here, now it has gone there, this is how I think it will go, this is how I think it will behave. All this kind of things will happen, all this kind of questions will come to your mind. And eventually, this also creates a feeling. The knowledge which you will create also a feeling that there is actually something like a past, like a future, and like the flow of time which is happening. So when you create knowledge about the movement, that knowledge gives you an impression as if time is something fundamental, which is the hypothesis of a lot of central key investigators of reality, the key physicists of our time. Professor Sean Carroll, very famous physicist at the moment from Johns Hopkins, saying that time is something like a fundamental fabric, fundamental reality, and it cannot go away from our theory of everything. So the whole point is that time cannot go away from your whole understanding if you are always measuring the movement. Okay? Whatever movement is in front of you, actually there is infinite movement in front of you. Everything is in some kind of a flux, everything is moving in some way. The tree, the leaf, I can literally start measuring, calculating everything, and then I would say there is infinite amount of information that I have to gather to explain all this, okay? Which is practically not possible to gather infinite amount of information. So that is one way. That's the way of the science, that's the way of the physicists, where they would say that time is not an idea It's not a man-made construct. It's more of like a fundamental basic thing which exists by itself. So that's one way. The other way is the way of the I don't know how to put it. You can say it's the way of freedom. You can say it's the way of meditation. You can say it's the way of relaxation. Okay. Why I use all these words is because, as I pointed out before, I observe the movement, but I don't try to learn anything from that movement. My whole point is to just observe the movement. That's it. The moment I do that, the distinction between multiple movements fades away for me. Okay? The judgment of the movements, different movements that I see, the movement of the tree, the plant, the movement of a car, for sure, I would create different sets of knowledge for different kinds of movements. Okay, you see, even to put it, I have to distinguish them, different kinds of movements. That when I will create the knowledge of the movement of a car, and the knowledge of the movement of a leaf, the knowledge of movement of the body of a human being, all these, when I create knowledge of them, that very knowledge will separate all these movements. Okay, because it will already call these three things as three objects: human, car, leaf, and then it will say the movement of a human is like this, the movement of a car is like this. Then so the whole naming, the whole measurement already creates divisions among objects. It creates division among the movement of those objects. Okay, and then you will bring in the concept of relativity as well, that because one is moving, the observation taken from a moving observer towards another thing is already biased from the movement of the first observer. And then comes the concept of relativity, well, whether you keep it to the Newtonian levels or you push it to special or general relativity. So all this, all relativity and everything is generating because we are measuring the movement. Okay, and don't try to feel that I'm saying that there is something drastically bad in this. Like measuring a movement has its own positive effects of having a technological advancement. If you have to do some technological you have to design a car, you have to send a spaceship, all those events, all those actions require the knowledge of previous movements. Okay, so it isn't necessary to create knowledge about movements as well, but when we do that, we shouldn't forget that it is not the fundamental thing. And the reason I say why it is not the fundamental thing is because the knowledge of the movement doesn't exist naturally. What I mean by that is that when you are born, you are not born with the knowledge of all the movements, that you have to call this movement this, you have to call this movement that. Okay, so from nature's point of view, nature is giving you all the tools you need already when you are born. Okay, at least at the species level, you have the genetic and everything memory. So all these things, all the other species and all the other animals are also born with this basic set of tools which are needed. So nature is not sending you with knowledge. Actually, you do have the genetic knowledge, of course, because that is for self-protection, but there is no knowledge of there is no knowledge of the world, in the sense of nature is not saying you have to know that a banana is called banana. Okay, so all those things were later developed by humans, and they had their own positive effects. That language has its own positive effects when you categorize things, and it makes things easy. I accept all that, but all I'm saying is it is not fundamental. Okay, Fundamental is only movement. There is movement, and that's it. That is what we all can accept on. What is the behavior of the movement? This is where already relativistic opinions will start coming on. One person will say, for me, the movement is like this. The other will say, the move for me. You understand? You look at a beautiful person on a street. You're sitting with your friend. You will have a different feeling and different judgment about the movement of this person, and your friend might have a different feeling. So, but movement is basic to you and your friend both. Hence, I'm saying that to look at movement just as movement and not do anything with it, just to look at it, that it's a movement, and that's it. And the moment you do that, you would see that because you're not creating separate knowledge for each movement, your feeling of separativeness of each movement also fades away. So this will give you two very good insights. First, that the knowledge you have creates an experience. At the moment, we assume as if the knowledge is there, sitting silently and only used when we need it. But it's not like that. The knowledge itself that you possess in your brain, it is creating an experience of your life as well. Okay? So that is the first thing you learn from that. And the second thing you learn from that is that when there is no knowledge of movements, distinguishing the movements, all movements will become just movement, and there will be no difference among these movements. Okay? And if you observe it on a quiet morning like this, with a calm mind, you would see that there is just one movement. Okay? The moving of that tree, the moving of my hand, the moving of my lips, the moving of the car on the road, the moving of the stars, the moving of the galaxy. It is all happening at the same time as one movement. And because you are not judging any of the movement, you are not touching any of the movement, you would see the union of all these movements. All is happening together at the same time. It's one movement. But because we measure each movement every time, every day, every second, and create knowledge of each movement every time, every day, we break the movements into different movements, into different types. And because we create the knowledge about it, it also starts giving us a feeling that these are separate movements. But the moment you stop creating, I would say, not even, because you are self-creating this emotions and this knowledge about the distinguishedness of different movement, distinguishedness of different times, because you are creating knowledge about them according to different motives. Okay, so with the car, my motive is something different to gain the knowledge. With the tree, my motive is different. When I observe a beautiful person, my motive is different to get the knowledge. And hence, my experience comes out that these are three different movements. But in reality, it's all one movement. Or there is, like, the movement of my hand is happening at the same time as the movement is happening to you right now who is listening to me. We are all part of one physical movement. It's all moving at the same time. Okay? And relativity comes only in specific segments. There is one movement which includes relative movements. Okay? Instead of seeing it as a lot of multiple movements and relativity, because relativity itself is zonal. It has the property of locality. Okay? Relativity has a limit of locality. Things are relative in a local zone. That the time near a black hole is different flow as sitting on Earth, but you can see that the effect of that is local near that black hole. There is no universal effect of that. If there was, there would be no relativity, because it would normalize all time. Okay, the reason there is relativity is because there's a limit up to which the effect of one time ends and then the effect of the other time starts. But all these effects are part of one movement. That's all I'm trying to say. I know it's a little difficult because we are in a habit of creating knowledge about movements, and that habit of creating knowledge gives us strong emotions about movements, about different times, and then that emotion that we feel about different times create further knowledge about that. Yes, I'm very sure that these things are different because I'm feeling them, and I must trust my experience because this is the only thing I have. So you're experiencing, you first through the experience create the knowledge that these things are different. That knowledge then creates another experience that yes, these things are for sure different, and that kind of makes you more confident in your own opinion, and eventually you stop seeing it as your opinion or as a concept, and you start feeling it as a fundamental reality that yes, time or these broken movements are a fundamental reality. But to stop that, or to explore the other option, that to create the fundamental realities, you have to do a lot of effort. You have to create knowledge. Knowledge requires effort. You have to judge everything. Okay. But what happens when you don't do anything? When you don't judge anything? When you just sit naturally with the instrument that has been given to you by nature, which is your observation, your five senses. You don't do anything else. You don't apply a concept on your observation, the concept of judgment, the concept of language, the concept of definitions. You just sit with your observation and observe if these movements that you see everywhere are different. And because you stop the flow of that knowledge for some time on a beautiful morning like that, and this, you see that these movements are going on at the same time. Even language is so biased, I have to use the word time to say that. Okay, so all these movements are one movement because they are not broken. Okay, the movement of the wind on that tree is affecting me right now. Okay, the movement of that tree is creating a pressure on the wind. That wind is coming towards me, hitting me, creating a different pressure, going in a different direction, and the flow is going on. Okay, so when you don't observe the movement, you see that it is one movement. That one movement is, you can actually feel it. In the same way, you actually feel right now that they are not one movement because you have divided them conceptually. Okay, so I hope I was trying to clear some stuff here, and I hope you would try it first of all, because without trying there's no point of just feeling that yes, I have understood it. There's no understanding without the act of it. So acknowledge the movement, I would say. Okay, thanks again for your time, and we will meet in another video. Bye.